Welcome to Crawlspace. I'm Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are ya?
Good. How are you today?
So much better than the first part. And Lance, so this is part 2 of a 2-part interview with Jennifer Carole and Michelle Kaszuba. Michelle Kaszuba is a prosecutor in the state of New York, and she's a friend of ours. She's been on Missing Maura Murray. Jennifer Carole is a podcaster and really just a wonderful human being. She's a life coach, and her father and stepmother were killed by the Golden State Killer.
So it was a bit unexpected that Jennifer and Michelle joined us for this conversation, but they did. And I think everybody who contributed in the message boards and everybody who was asking the questions, I think they really were pleasantly surprised by how much information was there and Jennifer's energy and how Michelle and Jennifer had this amazing rapport. So if you were there for the GetVokl, you witnessed it firsthand. But if you're listening now, I think you're all going to be in for a treat.
And this conversation happened the week that the Golden State Killer pled guilty in court. And so this episode, this live show was very timely when it happened. And so, yeah, it's been a few weeks, but we do think you're really going to like it. And it's mostly, a prosecutor talking with a victim. I mean, it's incredible.
Jennifer Carole has a website, jcarole.com. You can go there and you can check out her website where she does some team coaching and life lessons and energy coaching. And she also has a podcast called The Lawyer's Daughter, which is amazing. And just check out her story. Her story is inspirational when it could have been super tragic. And she really came out of this experience an incredible person that you can really learn a lot from. I know we have.
Said it's for the people at that point. It's not for us. So they also said that because we didn't have any other record, no prelim, no nothing, that they were going to have to say a little bit more. And because California doesn't have allocution, so I mean, not where you say the whole thing. So he would have been tired, wouldn't he? Could you imagine him having to allocate all that stuff? We would have been there for a whole week. So yeah, I think I didn't even appreciate that 7 minutes was a long time. But I did know it felt both short and long at the same time as I stood there. Like, it was crazy. But that makes a really great point.
I mean, like, one of the things that I was thinking of when I was watching the prosecutors during the recitation of the factual allegations, so when I would take pleas with, the senior ADAs that I worked with on homicide cases, there's like this feeling that, you would get. And it would be like this, I'm trying to find the best way to describe it. Like, almost like the beginning of like an anxiety attack where you get like that tightness in your chest, but it's also a little bit of excitement, then also a little bit of like, could something go wrong? Like, we've worked so hard for this. What happens if something bad happens? Are my victims okay? And just a lot of stuff and I remember taking a particular plea, probably my second year doing homicides with a family annihilator. And I just remember standing there and I was jamming my thumbnail into my hand to keep my hand from shaking, because it was just so many emotions all at once. And I was watching the
Does it work? Does it work?
It doesn't. It does not work. But I was thinking, and I'm watching the prosecutors, and I'm like, they're doing everyone just did a really, really good job. And then because I was happy with them doing a good job, I started thinking about all of you. And then when I saw Jane stand up, it was just like, well, they're going to be all right.
Well, and those prosecutors work so well together. They even said, I'm using my word for it, but they almost had like a rubric so that for each crime they could check, so that because they wanted to hit on theme up there talking, make sure this sounds gross. Oral copulation, vaginal penetration, anal penetration. Like, they had a rubric for all of that so they could every time remind us that stupid, touch my dick crap and all the other things. That's why we heard it so often, is they wanted to make sure we were clear. He's so uncreative. That was probably the worst part of binge watching this. It was almost the same story with different levels of brutality, but it was almost the same story every damn
The other
time.
thing too is that they have to say certain things, and when you do a plea, you have to to say certain things and say it in a certain way, so that way you hit every single element of the crime to make sure that it's valid and that it stands up on appeal later on. So, you know, where.
Okay, so then that's why they had that list to make sure this is a one. This
yeah.
is
So I do financial crimes now, and I do that all the time because, like, it's, you know, you catch somebody with 20 you know, forged credit cards. That's 20 counts, and I have to sit there. You need to have like your chart, and you need to know what's going on, etc. So, you know, it's one thing, you know, you said about everybody working together. You know, that's, lawyers have big egos. I always say to everybody, it's like, you know, I can't stand lawyers. I really can't stand lawyers. But one of the biggest cases in our history, in true crime history, to see the prosecutors, you know, the people who were, you know, on the ground doing all this stuff and then standing up there representing all of you, seeing them doing it right, seeing them doing it in a way that, you know, the ego was put aside, you know, the ego was put aside, you know, the time in the spotlight was put aside, and I really, really felt like this was for the victims.
Yeah, I concur. They did, as much as they represent the people, they took care, and that's important. We had such a pivotal meeting with them in March, where, you know, we kind of demanded a meeting because things had been kind of all over the place, especially with 6 jurisdictions. And so I really felt like they heard us and worked super hard to represent. And I cannot sing my prosecutor's praises enough. Like, she's amazing. And all of them. I mean, I know, I feel like I know the Sacramento crew because I see them all the time.
What was the scene like there? Because this didn't happen in a courthouse, right? This was
It happened at Sac State, where I got my master's degree. Apparently D'Angelo got a degree from there too, so I need to call Sac State and go, all right, we can balance the scale here, because he may have got a degree, but I did too. It was at Sac State in the Memorial Union. So guess what? We're in the MU. I could see the Hornet store right there. That's their mascot, is a Hornet. And the thing is the venue turned out to be amazingly perfect, because if we had to deal with COVID, I mean, I was really dreading being packed in a courtroom, even if it was like one seat. If we were trying to pretend like for Delta Airlines and there was a middle seat free, it's still an uncomfortable room. And we've never, ever been in a real courtroom. We've only been in the county jail's courtroom. So this whole case happened without ever hitting a real courtroom, like in the courthouse.
That is so crazy.
We want to keep adding up the dystopian. It's like, Paul Haynes has a quote today out, but I know I had said it too in the courtroom. Like, how ironic is it that he's up there once again with the goddamn mask? Because of course, but I did like that we all had masks on. So it was a ballroom, which once I heard a ballroom, personally I was relieved, because ballrooms have bathrooms. But it was a ballroom, and then as you come out, because it's a MU, like we're in the Memorial Union, we came out and there's a Subway for students. They used the Subway to make our lunches, which was a good call, because one thing about Subway sandwiches, it's rare that it's going to cause you to need the bathroom. And that was like, that's a consideration. I ate rice the night before because our insides were a wreck. I mean, I know the lawyers, and I know Cheryl Temple didn't even sleep that night, I don't think, Sunday night, because she was a wreck. Like, that's, I mean, a wreck preparing, but she was, you know, you're wired, you're just pumped. So we had Subway sandwiches that was just like, we just walked out in the sandwich there. Some people could eat outside. They kept the media away from us in a good way. So we could either approach the media in the back of the room if we felt inclined, or a lot of the TV crew people were outside. And thankfully, they weren't allowed to chase us. Like, we could decide to go out there, which was a really good way to do it, because honestly, I had to try to eat. And by the way, anybody who's ever suffering any anxiety, the answer is Lay's potato chips. They are there. That's the go-to food, man. That salt hits your tongue and you kind of come back. So I was able to get some food before I had to go out and talk to them, because I really needed to just have a moment, you know, to breathe. And the space was perfect. It was big. It was weird because they had, on my left was all law enforcement, investigators, Larry Poole, Paul Holes, but not just the names you know, a lot of the names you don't know. They were all there. A shit ton of deputies. Like, I don't know what they were expecting, but we had deputies up the yin yang. And then we were able to be screened. And then the stage, I didn't expect he'd be facing us, which was, as gross as it was, a bit of a relief, because we really thought, God, are we just gonna be looking at the back of that stupid head the whole time? And in fact, no. In fact, it was easier for me to look at him. Like I looked to the lectern. So he was directly in front of me, like maybe 20 feet. He was close. If I was going to vomit, I could have hit him. And that was my plan. That was my plan is that if it comes, it's going to go there. I could be up there in a second. Jane was a little tiny bit behind me. So that's how close. And she looked in it. You saw how fast she got up there. So then, but I leaned towards the lectern. It was actually easier for me to see D'Angelo or to watch that god awful whatever on we have big screen projectors, which you guys maybe could have seen. So we could see it that way. And I actually preferred looking over there than to be that close. So it was, and then all of the survivors were to my right, either a little bit in front of me, like Beth Snelling was right in the, she was right in the front, but she was right in front of the judge. So a little bit over to the left. And then the Majoris were in front of me. Mr. Harrington was directly in front of me. Deb was right kind of behind me, but we were kind of like the murder people. Interestingly, Shelley Cruz was kind of a little more in the back, which was, I don't know why they put her back there. Maybe because she had more people. I'm not sure. I only had myself. So it was, there were kind of near the front. There were just a few of us, but it was a really good space. And when we took breaks, we all violated COVID rules because so many of us hadn't seen each other. So we were hugging. I kept my mask on because of the HVAC. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much LA and Arizona and stuff in here, and people from the media and people who had flown on planes. I'm like, oh, so I'm just waiting to get the call that we were all exposed.
I want to not let the comment pass that you just said about everyone was wearing masks who were there. Looking at D'Angelo, I know that COVID-19 is a terrible thing, but how poetic is that he stalked people and he terrorized people with a mask, and his come to terms here, his moment of like justice is right here. All the people that are alive that he terrorized and have residual effects of this are all wearing masks looking at him. Like, that is, I have the chills. Like, that is unbelievable to me that the universe works like this.
Isn't that, I'm with you. I'm like, hey, pandemic coming out from the back there. I don't want anybody to die or anything, but I'm like, pandemic for the win on this one. Who would have known? Because we got a great space. I was terrified to be in a courtroom. We had a great space. If you had to sit there through that, unless I had my lawn chair, it couldn't be any better. Like, we were it was comfortable. It was good. The temperature was right. Like, all those variables that can make you so miserable were not in play. So yeah, you're right. I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh yeah, he's looking at all
unbelievable.
I
saw amazing.
I saw that Paul Haynes quote on Twitter, and when I read it, it like hit me, and I was like, oh my God, it was like that. It was that he was, Jen, you might remember it better than me.
Yeah, he said, how ironic is it that the man who wore a mask to commit all his crimes today has to wear a mask?
I see. That's nice.
Oh, that is very Paul Holes of him.
And that
Haynes.
Oh,
Paul
Haynes.
No, Paul Haynes. Paul Haynes from McNamara's book.
Right.
Yeah, the writer.
Yeah.
I mean, the research writer. So it is poetic. And we talked about that. Definitely was that we were all talking about in the room, and he wasn't. I don't believe he was in the room. And so, he said it perfectly, because that's really it. Unmasking a killer. How ironic!
I love
this.
this.
See-through.
I love this. Like, he's got a mask that's see-through. All of you have masks that he can't see through. The iron, it's too good. It's too good. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't want to get.
They got 1 point here.
But damn, he gets to own this.
Chris Duet had a question here. Did D'Angelo ever do anything that stood out to you, Jen? A look, a reaction, or anything like that?
Hey, Chris. Chris wants it to be good because Chris likes stuff that's really good like that. There wasn't. He did definitely shift his posture when Jane approached. There was a moment I didn't. You guys that streamed could hear it better than us. There was a moment. Well, okay, here's the thing. This is a Chris one, because now anybody who's super pathological can go back and look at the tape. I don't believe D'Angelo drank water in public once. And the reason I think that's significant, well, first of all, everybody was drinking water because it's dry and everything. But I think that's significant because I think it really speaks to how well he's able to go into that torpor. And if you don't know the word torpor, go look it up. It's a great word. It has to do with hummingbirds and that rest state that they can do where they're not awake or asleep. but they go into a torpor. And that's what I felt like he was in, because that's why he couldn't say guilty or I admit. He literally wasn't listening. And that's why I wanted to go up and say, show some respect just to the judge, like sit up and pay attention. I don't know, Michelle, if defense attorneys ever do kick their clients, but I felt like he owed the process more respect, but he wasn't listening. So I think Mr. Kress was literally, I'm like, does he have like 2 flashcards up there just going, okay, this one's a guilty, this one's an I admit? Because it just felt like Mr. Kress, who I feel so sorry for, the thing went on forever, was like just pointing to one of the 2 answers.
My heart stopped every time the judge finished with a charge. And then there was like that pause. And I was just like, oh my God, you better say it. Or and just like over, and like even though like this was all day and you, like you were saying before, you binge watched this whole thing, you still like your heart's gonna stop every time. It's like, is he gonna say no? Is he gonna say I don't admit? Like, what's he gonna say? And I'm sitting there and I'm watching it and I'm like, you better admit it, you bastard, you better admit it. But to what you said before, I've never seen like a defense attorney like kick their client under the table or anything, but I've been in front of some judges that have given like a severe dressing down to the defendants. And
that's I really wanted Bowman to say, just sit up, speak clearly. Like, this is a big damn deal, sir, including your life. Like, come on. And your daughters are maybe watching. Like,
yeah, but at the same time,
at
the same time, the judge, looking at it from his point of view, he doesn't want to be looked at as like, oh, I'm taking sides, I'm bullying him. He has to make sure that his portion of the record is very clear. And the judge presented very well. He presented as very impartial. He was in charge of that courtroom. He knew exactly what was going to happen. He knew what was, what his role was and how things were going to go. And let me tell you, you might not believe it, but like, I've been in courtrooms that have just been absolute chaos, and it's so nerve-wracking. And if you don't have, behind every good judge is, like in New York, we call them like the law secretaries, like their main law clerk. So like behind every good judge has to be an even better law clerk. And those are the people that are making sure that like all this stuff is set. They're checking the charges. Do we have the right subsection? Do we have the right this, the right that? Calling the prosecutors. Okay, you're going to show up at this time. This is what we're going to do. It's almost like.
Yeah, he even noticed the date discrepancies. That judge was like, wait. Was that the 11th or the 10th? And I'm like, wait, what? That wasn't even the most important thing that just got said.
Because he wants a clear record. He needs a clear record, because even though D'Angelo pled guilty, if I had $1 for every time I had a defendant who pled guilty and then turned around and was like, I waive my right to appeal, but you know what? I'm gonna file that appeal. And then you go into this whole, long thing of appeals, this, that, and the other, even though they knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently waived their right to appeal, which I'm sure the judge went through with him as well. And that's actually something that when I was watching at the beginning, and I was listening to the way that the judge was talking to him, and he was going through all of those main things that you need to have down on a record to make sure that D'Angelo knew that he was there. This was happening. He's doing it of his own free will, because if he turns around and says, oh, I was under the influence, somebody bullied me, I was threatened or coerced. You have that record now where he's saying on the record, yes, I know what's happening, and yes, I'm agreeing to do it. So he doesn't have a shot at
no meds.
That's in every plea allocution, even the ones like if I take one for like a small, like say like a forged instrument crime or something, the judge will go through the same thing. Are you pleading guilty because you want to plead guilty? Are you under the influence of any medication or alcohol, etc.? The whole 9 yards. It's the same thing for every plea.
So Michelle, they told us the only thing that could be at risk between now and sentencing is potentially a habeas issue. What would that be? What does that mean?
In general, habeas is when when the defense attorney petitions the court to release the body of the defendant, like literally, like, let me get out of jail, let me get out of prison. And it could be, and this is just me spitballing because of the just knowing the kind of like time that we're living in now. It could be that he's an old man, and he can't be in that prison anymore. Why don't you let him out pending sentence? Where's he gonna go? He's an old man in a wheelchair. He wants to come out so that way he can make peace with his family or something like that. Like, again, I'm just spitballing, I'm not sure, but habeas is when a defense attorney petitions the court to release the body from.
It doesn't that literally translate to, doesn't habeas corpus literally translate to show the body?
Yeah, it's something like that. We're going back like 11 years to law school. I never did habeas petitions in when I worked in appeals, but they're very complicated.
I did. I just binged it. I just looked on Bing.
Got a bing.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I,
Let's see. Jason had a point here. He said, throw his ass in Old Sparky and let him ride the Thunderbolt, which would make an amazing T-shirt. But what do you feel about that? Do you think like there's stuff to be learned from his mind, from his like rotten mind, or should we just let it end?
This guy, I bit my lip about this, but this guy ain't saying shit. He's a fucking piece of shit. Go to hell.
Honestly, that's why I want him in Gen Pop so bad, because nobody's held a mirror up to him and said, this is that he doesn't. It's like he doesn't even understand what a piece of shit he is. Like, oh, well, you need to go meet your peers. You haven't met your crew yet. They're all waiting for you in Gen Pop. Let's have you meet the people like you, because he's been spared the people like him. And I would like him to be afraid. And I'm so pissed he won't be in general population. I don't know what that rule's about. It just pisses me off, because he's going to go in protective custody, because I'm going to call it a VIP, but whatever that is, that puts him in protective custody, and he still is not seeing his reflection in the mirror. And I want him to walk up on one of these guys that's killed a lot of other people and be like, oh, this is scary. Oh yeah. And they don't have small apparatus.
Well, I was gonna say Tim might be able to tell us a thing or two about Whitey Bulger, and how he met his end. I was thinking, it's like, you never know. Whitey Bulger could happen to anybody.
I got a little nervous because Jen just said small apparatus, and the next thing you said was Tim might be able to. And like, Jesus, Michelle, this isn't Mike Morford's show.
That was a bad transition, Michelle.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
This is podcasting at its best, right? This is why I stay behind the scenes.
I think it's great that that people had a little bit of fun with him in court, and I think we've had some fun with that on social in the past with his micro dick. I think that's great, to be honest, that you can make fun of him like that, and it's fun. He's a piece of shit, he can go fuck himself. I don't know. I was gonna say something else, like, maybe he's an asshole, like this has something to do with why he's such an asshole. But he's just a fucking dickhead.
Right. I mean, you can learn about him, I guess. Like, what could you learn about him? Could you psychoanalyze him? Could there be anybody who could go in there and? Well,
it's super frustrating because they had apparently a killer criminologist. Because what we never got was that that real profiler. I know the FBI did some, but they didn't have him. And we never got that real profiler look that we all feed off of when we watch our Criminal Minds shows and stuff. And so it turns out they had a person, $400 an hour. So I got to find out. There's the job to be in. $400 an hour. And my DA said, or my prosecutor said, we really wanted to do it, but at the point we realized where it was going, we're like, we're not spending that money. And I go, that's okay. It's my money, taxpayer money. I get it. I get it. But maybe tell me who it was later after sentencing. Maybe I can get an interview, because we didn't get that. We didn't get that really good understanding of the mentality. We got sadist, but we didn't really understand. Is it narcissism driving him? Is he borderline? Is he tries to throw out Jerry like he has an alter, except most alters don't show up when you're arrested. They tend to show up. That's not how it works. So if you just go, I just got rid of Jerry. No, that's called the nervous breakdown.
Oh yeah, this is
the dark triad that we've been exploring with our colleagues at LA Not So Confidential, Dr. Shiloh and Dr. Scott. He's got the perfect combination of Machiavellianism, narcissism, and he's a psychopath, and he's playing a game, and he knows that he's playing a game when he's there in court, and he's like, oh, I don't know what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to say? Okay, I'll say this. And he'll and the only thing that'll come from any sort of psychoanalysis is, I guess, maybe him playing around with whoever's interviewing him and not getting any answers, right? And he would just want to waste their time. It's like that the scene in Silence of the Lambs. Like, I think he sees himself as this Hannibal Lecter character where he's just going to toy with somebody and toy with somebody and toy with somebody, and then tell them just like, okay, now you can go away. I've toyed with you enough.
But he's useless. He won't say anything though.
No, I mean, exactly. That even might be his ploy right there too. Is like his play might just be, I'm gonna sit here for an hour and a half while you guys ask me questions, and I'll simply ask to use the restroom, and then you guys can analyze that for 20 years. I couldn't imagine being related to him. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine that's your dad?
I feel bad for them. I feel really bad for his family. You know, I feel like maybe they would actually be able to shed some light on his psyche more than he could, because he's obviously not saying anything.
There you go. Yeah, the people who knew him.
Right. And James Huddle's book is out, and I feel comfortable. I haven't read it yet. I feel comfortable saying, though, like that, like it's okay to give him money. Like, that's okay. From what I've heard, he's a really decent guy, and he was really just trying to provide the victims with a little more information to help us understand what we didn't get to see. So if you've been considering the Huddle book, it's not a big read. Tons of people have read it already this week and have said, you know, it's a little light, but it's
Tim just ordered it.
I don't feel bad supporting James.
What's that called?
Because
Sorry.
I think he'll I'm hoping he's still supporting the girls, is what I'm hoping. And whatever that means, even emotionally.
And what's
that
called?
is there for the girls. So
James Huddle. Oh, okay.
I don't know. James Huddle is his name. It's Sharon's brother. Apparently they don't talk anymore. They don't talk. So that kind of speaks to his character. Kind of like that. So he doesn't talk to Sharon, but he does provide some little nuggets that I think people might find interesting. And what I love about this crowd is y'all then go map the dates he's talking about to things and go, wait a minute. Because one of the things somebody figured out, like it was right. He went and raped right before he went to a wedding.
What?
Because I guess that's what you do before a wedding. So James said he came to somebody's wedding. I don't have the book, but there's a scene or a description of where D'Angelo was supposed to be going to a wedding. But if you look at the crime roster, he went and crimed and then went to the wedding.
You know what that means? That means that it wasn't a big deal to him. It was like, I'm going to this wedding, but that's right, I need milk and eggs.
Oh yeah, or like when your dad's like, I'm gonna go hit a bucket of balls before we go to church. You know, like what? Like, okay. I mean, I get it. Like, but I mean, yeah, you're right. It just was that simple.
Jen, do you feel like if you don't, like, not having him sit there and be psychoanalyzed and telling you all the things that you want to know and that you want to know for everybody else, do you feel like that's still a bit of a hold on you, or do you think that that's something that maybe in time is going to be less of a hold? Because I agree with Lance. I don't think this is a person who's ever going to tell anybody exactly what they want to know or what they want to hear, because there's still that little bit of power being derived from, you know, there's little details that I know that nobody else will. But, you know, just to see the way that you all reacted and had, you know, this moment in court, you know, I would hate to see, you know, as a, you know, not as a lawyer, just as a human being, and, you know, just as somebody in this community, I'd want to see you all, you know, move on to these, you know, these next stages of your life without this monster having a hold on you.
I got a really, really sweet message from a friend today who knows me since nursery school, if that's possible. And nursery school is like 4 years old. But her son committed suicide when he was 16. And she said, Jenny, I'm so afraid you're not going to know why your dad and Charlene were chosen the same way I don't know why my son killed himself. And I said, I never would have thought of it like that, because I feel so bad she doesn't know the why. And I'm like, but I'm literally the same. It's just the same. When you don't know why your people are dead, like why they were chosen, it's just this, and I'm okay living with it because I realize I'm not going to know. It's just something I'm not going to know. But I don't think I realized how many people out there live with that lack of knowing. But the thing is, the reality is, especially when I think of mothers who've lost children to suicide, or fathers who've lost children to suicide, or friends, or any of us, we just don't know. And so it's kind of just like that. Like, but why? If you're going to keep asking why, you're going to screw yourself over. And my friend's been really brave. Instead, she turned it out. She does a lot of work with helping kids and parents with suicide, which is exactly what I think the survivors of this crime really want to do. For the most part, almost everybody's looking for a way. One woman I know just quit her 6-figure job. Her mother was the victim, but she's changed her whole life. She wants to begin advocacy. I'm really interested in figuring out how to somehow find. One of the things that's interesting about this is a white crime. Like, let's just name it, guys. It's white people, white crime. I didn't see any people of color even in the damn room on Monday. That's something I often look for because I care about what I think is true is that the Floyd family and my family, in many ways, know the same pain. Our story doesn't belong to us. It got away from us. I mean, his is so much more tragic because we're literally watching him be killed, right? But the idea behind it is that the people of color aren't in this true crime thing. They're not included. They don't join. I'm really interested as I look to what I can do in the future. I'm really interested, not speaking on behalf of Black people, but somehow bringing the voices together and us starting to not see this in terms of skin color, but you realize there's a whole freaking bunch of us in pain, and we can reimagine what we want our culture to be right now in all of our countries, and we can start to change this. But we've got to be open to seeing the pain in everyone and listening to that pain, and then helping each other build a world where maybe this crap
Holy
doesn't
shit.
happen.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm just thinking.
That's what I sit in my chair and think
You're
about.
totally right.
Oh.
Yeah, can't even follow up on that. That is just beautiful Yeah, exactly. Shannon is floored. Yeah, that is unbelievable coming from like your background, just what you've taken from the tragedy that's happened to you, and you've applied it to all of this. Like, it's unbelievable to me.
It's important. I'm going to seek out. I don't know how hard it's going to be. But I'm going to seek out. There are some mothers of survivors even here. I think Philando Castile in Sacramento, who we have a Black death of a child. And I want to talk to some of these other, especially people of color, because it's time that this true crime stops. If you guys think, even on the damn TV shows, they're not using people of color. Like, this is enough. Crime is happening to them way more than us. I'm not that special. Honestly, there's a lot more crime going on. We were an anomaly. That's what bugs me. We're the anomaly. But in fact, for other ethnic groups, this is bullshit. I mean, so we've got to somehow unify these voices, and we've got to stop this where it becomes this period interest from white women in particular. But so every white person on this call, I want you to just be aware. If you can just start to think about people of color and their stories, that's like, if I can get that much to happen, we're starting to create change. All of us, every damn
Absolutely.
I got nothing else to say.
Love it, Jen.
No, you are right. I mean,
sorry,
people,
that's my jam, man.
It's not about what you look like or where you're from. It's about being united in pain and working towards that change that's going to benefit everyone. Yes, the human experience.
That's right.
100%, 100,000,000%.
Our humanity is, that's our humanity is what's mattered. We've lost it somewhere in the last 4 years. I mean, we've just gotten confused. It's been a little longer in coming, but it's time to get it back, and it doesn't know skin color. Just like COVID, it's the same. Skin color don't matter. It's how well we take care of each other. So that's kind of my own personal little agenda. And I hope my audience can take the pivot. So I'm going to do it gently, because I know it's going to be people. If you're having an issue with somebody of color telling their story, I'm going to ask you to just think a little bit about what's going on, because that's the consciousness I want. I just want you to even be aware that you're like, wait, what? Wait, that's weird for me, or that feels uncomfortable. Just that. is huge. So like I said, baby steps, but let's try the little pivot. And then I'll be appealing to all my fellow true crime fans and podcasters and everything else to also
walk to the ends of the earth for Jen Carole any day of the week.
Yeah, well said, Jen Carole. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. And thank you, Michelle, for joining us tonight. Thank you, Mike Morford. And thank you, everybody in the chat room, everybody who's listening now. We really appreciate the conversation. What a great chat tonight. I love it when we don't even have to chime in, Lance. Those are my favorite, to be honest.
It really raises the intelligence level, doesn't it? But no, you're so right. Like this discussion really went like to a point. Like it was. You had the moments of like poetic justice and spiritualism and then just like social justice, like, and social change. And it's amazing that we can talk about this and just over an hour, we can go from Golden State Killer to, listen, everybody just needs to be more aware of your fellow person, your fellow neighbor, your brothers and sisters out there. Just be more aware and care about them. And it all comes from a tragedy that you're turning into something positive. It's amazing.
Well, thank you guys for letting us talk about this. I mean, it's just, like I said, baby steps, but we'll start. Let's start. Yeah. Let's all start. Like, this is important. This is where we all have a vehicle to make change. Let's all just sign up to do that. I think we can do it.
You've dropped so many iconic lines during this broadcast. I mean, everything from small penises to we need to make change. I love it. Honestly, like the best line ever on GetVokl was you saying you don't know why men trust women with their penises. That is the best line that's been spoken here.
Well, got everybody's attention with that one tonight.
Shannon's drinking straight from the bottle now.
Amazing.
Oh my God, I love it.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you, everybody. What a great night.
Thank you for this platform, for letting us come on here to talk and share and co-opt your GetVokl.
I have a real quick story. I felt so bad, Jen. My Google auto filled in your name when I first emailed you to Jenny, and I didn't realize that it said Jenny, and then I felt so bad. I texted Tim, and I'm like, I just fucking called her Jenny. And twice in that email, I was like, thanks, Jenny. And then I looked at the email back, and I'm like, God damn it. So I just want to apologize here. I did not mean to go.
It's perfectly fine. Jenny Smith is who was the victim. So I was Jenny Smith at the time. The only other name that I answer to is Henny Squid, which is my nickname. And if somebody's calling me Squid, I know they're from Ventura because my loudmouth friend told everybody that was my nickname. So
okay,
yes,
good.
I don't mind Jenny at all.
I felt terrible.
But Lance is still a jerk about it.
No. That was funny. It actually made me laugh. It was in the middle of everything too when I got it, and it made me laugh. I'm like, oh my God, he's worried about calling me Jenny. Are you kidding me? That's like nothing. That's nothing.
Oh, okay, good. I feel better.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.